Hey everybody, we're working to get information out to the industry to keep everyone up to date on what is happening when it comes to how the payments industry is being affected during the coronavirus outbreak. We're going to be discussing resources and organizations in the industry that can offer assistance. No time for the intro video, let's just get right to it. We're going to be discussing several organizations over the next couple of videos. OCC, FDIC, NCUA, bankers banks, corporate credit unions, credit union links, payment associations, as well as others during these videos. First of all, who can help? Well, that does depend on who you are a member of and what your issue is. I'm going to go ahead and say that if there are any organizations that I mentioned that do require membership and you're not a member, I would recommend calling them anyway. And you may find that they are still very willing to help, and you might find that there's value in being a member of whatever that organization is. Today, let's start this series with the OCC. Again, who's the OCC? Quick recap. The OCC, that is the Office of the Comptroller of Currency. They are an independent bureau within the United States Department of Treasury that was established by the National Currency Act of 1863. And they serve to charter, to regulate, and to supervise all national banks and thrift institutions and the federally licensed branches and agencies of foreign banks that are here in the United States. Well, the OCC recently released a bulletin in relation to the coronavirus outbreak. It is Bulletin OCC 2020-15, Pandemic Planning, Working with Customers Affected by Coronavirus and Regulatory Assistance. This came out Friday, March 13th. The Office of the Comptroller of Currency does recognize the potential for the coronavirus, COVID-19, to adversely affect their customers and operations of banks and those that the OCC supervises. The OCC is encouraging banks to take steps to meet the financial service needs of their customers who are adversely affected by COVID-19 related issues. The OCC is going to be providing appropriate regulatory assistance where warranted to banks that are affected by the coronavirus related issues. A quick note for community banks and credit unions. While this bulletin applies to all OCC supervised banks, it doesn't mean you can't learn from it, and in future videos we will be sharing what other agencies are releasing as well, and a lot of it is similar. In fact, tomorrow you can expect to see information from the NCUA in a letter they released to credit unions. Now, what are the highlights of the bulletin? It addresses things like banks should be prudently working with adversely affected customers by doing things like waiving fees, offering repayment accommodations, extending payment due dates, and increasing daily withdrawal limits at automated teller machines, ATMs. Banks should be working with their customers. And the OCC encourages banks to work with affected customers and communities as it serves the long-term interests of the communities. Now, what can be done? Waiving of fees. What fees? Things like ATM fees for customers and even non-customers. Make it easier for people to get money. Waive overdraft fees. Maybe the waiving of late payment fees on credit cards or other loans. Possibly removing early withdrawal penalties on time deposits. Look at increasing ATM daily cash withdrawal limits. Consider easing restrictions on cashing out of state and non-customer checks. Possibly increasing credit card limits for credit-worthy borrowers, and even offering payment accommodations, such as allowing borrowers to defer or maybe skip some payments or extending the payment due date. All of this which would help avoid delinquencies and negative credit bureau reporting that could be caused by the coronavirus-related disruptions. The OCC is also emphasizing that prudent efforts to modify the terms on existing loans for affected customers should not be subject to examiner criticism. What's that mean? Where and when appropriate, a bank may restructure a borrower's debt obligations due to temporary hardships resulting from the COVID-19 related issues. Now, these types of cooperative efforts can accommodate temporary medical conditions or the inability of affected borrowers to access their normal payment methods. It eases cash flow pressures on the affected borrowers. It improves their capacity to service debt and facilitate the bank's ability to collect on its loans. Making modifications of existing loans should be evaluated individually to determine whether they represent troubled debt restructuring, though. Evaluation should be based on the facts and circumstances of each borrower and the terms of the loan modification. As always, evaluations require a judgment call, Not all modifications will result in a troubled debt restructuring, but could be as simple as doing like we mentioned before. Maybe you go through and you waive fees or allow deferment of payment for a selected time period if you can't restructure. Something else that banks could potentially do. They could ease terms for new loans to affected borrowers to help borrowers to recover or maintain their financial capacity and further enhance their ability to service their debt. There may be even more that can be done, but to see these recommendations already coming out, I think it's fantastic. The OCC recognizes there may be other accommodations as well for customers and communities while dealing with the coronavirus-related issues. They have gone so far as to state in their own bulletin that the OCC supports and generally will not criticize efforts to accommodate customers in a safe and sound manner. The OCC encourages banks to work with their supervisory office with respect to accommodations that may more effectively manage or mitigate adverse impacts due to the coronavirus or COVID-19. Some of you may be saying, but what about my bank and when the regulators come in to inspect us? First of all, document everything. You should always do that anyway. That goes without saying. It's what we have to do. Next though, the OCC is aware that you will have to show and answer for how you proceeded in processing during this pandemic. So they have released information on agencies providing regulatory relief, and when it comes to the financial condition review or the supervisory response and regulatory relief, the OCC also sees and realizes that some banks with customers who are more affected by the coronavirus or the related issues from it may experience an increase in their levels of delinquent and non-performing loans. So to be consistent with long-standing practices, the OCC will consider the unusual circumstances these banks face when reviewing a bank's financial condition and determining any supervisory response. And as needed, the OCC will work with the affected banks to reduce the burden when scheduling examinations or inspections, including making greater use of off-site reviews, consistent with the applicable legal and regulatory requirements, of course. And wait, what about those regulatory reporting requirements? If your bank is affected by the coronavirus and related issues and encounters difficulty meeting regulatory reporting requirements, including audited financial statements and related reports, then you are encouraged to contact your OCC supervisory office to discuss your situation. The OCC will work with banks that may experience problems fulfilling their reporting responsibilities, taking into account each bank's particular circumstances. But what if we have to close? Something we're seeing more and more of a possibility, because we're seeing many retailers, bars, and even restaurants are either being forced to or are proactively closing. The OCC understands that banks may need to temporarily close or otherwise reduce access to a facility because staffing challenges or to take precautionary measures. However, the OCC encourages banks to reduce disruptions to their customers, provide alternative service options when practical. I have a feeling we're going to see a lot of drive-through windows providing sanitizer are going to be the busiest for a while. And when it's safe to do so, reopen your affected locations. And any affected banks are encouraged to notify their OCC supervisory office and their customers of temporary closures of a bank's facilities and the availability of any alternative service options. If you need more information, go to the OCC website, occ.gov. Contact your OCC supervisory office. With all that is happening, we all need to stick together and find solutions that work. If there is an issue you are facing, if there is a problem that is unexpected caused by the virus pandemic, then please message me or email me, kevin@paymentsprofessor.com, and we will do our best to get that information recorded and made available to the whole industry. If you're restricted from traveling and in need of some education and continuing education credits, let me tell you, we're already working on some solutions for that as well. I already know some certification agencies have said, hey, they're going to make it easier for you to get credits. We're going to help with that. Let us know, though, how can we help you through this? We are here to serve you.